Hello there. Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you all here to the Prog Monster. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So before I blind you, I'm going to put on my hat. I thought maybe it wasn't going to work. I thought I was going to have two shutdown streams in a row. I was praying that wasn't going to be the case, as we have an electrical thunderstorm going through the area, blowing everything around. I thought maybe it would blow. Doesn't take much to shut the internet off in this country. So and I was kind of a little bit concerned about that. Didn't want to do 2 weeks in a row of the same thing, right? Anyways, we made it. We're here. We're live. So this week, for those of you who or maybe new to the channel or haven't seen this before, I do this live stream every Sunday night. Probably going to have to relocate it at some point, as I don't think I stand much a chance against Sunday night football, but I'm going to give it a shot. Anyways, for those of you new, basically here on the Progverse, I discuss something progressive or prog in relation in, let's try that again, progressive or prog in nature. That's what I'm trying to say. Hello. I know what my brain wants to say. My mouth just doesn't want to obey it. So anyways, so that's what we're doing. So today's topic is featuring my Rush collection, which I believe is in around the 22 album range. There's a couple more I'd like to get, but those are mostly live stuff. Got all of the studio albums already. I put these in chronological order, so I'll present them to you in chronological order. And basically what I'm going to do, for those of you who haven't seen this, is I will talk about each album a bit, its impact on me, a little bit about what I like about the music, and what songs are my favorite on the album. Pretty much just a kind of overall kind of mini review of all of the albums. So I hope my vocals are coming through clear. I have the mic here, but I've pushed it back just a little bit so that I can get my CDs in, and maybe let's move it back up a little bit. The only problem with putting it where I am is I'm going to probably whack it with the albums as I present them. So what I'm going to do with the album stack is the back stack I will leave where it is and bring the other stack here right in front of me. Hopefully that will work and not shut me off. I am doing well, Ben. Thanks for joining me. I wasn't sure this was going to fly. We just had an electrical storm. It's kind of passing through now. The main part has kind of died down. Heavy winds and blowing the tarp they just sealed in the back parking lot. They put this sealant over the top of the underground parking to seal it against problems, and most of it's blown off, been pulled off, and leaning against the far side of the building. Not really what they're going to be happy with when they show up here Monday morning. But I will be at work, so I won't be here to see any kind of hostility. Yeah, winter is coming, as they say in Game of Thrones. It's always coming until it actually comes, and then it's gone. Summer's coming your way. Congratulations. The planet's actually at its apogee, or at its farthest point in our summer, and at its nearest point in your winter, I believe. So when you're having winter and we're having summer, the planet is closest to the sun, and when you're having summer and we're having winter, it's furthest away. Yeah, I like the heat myself. I'm not looking for, I think this is the last day of summer here, officially. 21st of September, I think, is the last day of summer, although it could be the first day of fall. I'm not really know. I don't keep track of these things too much. I just know it's roughly that time period. So For those of you who haven't seen this, I'm just going to go through my Rush collection here, which I believe is around 22 albums. It might be 23. I'm thinking 22 is the number here. So basically, I have all the studio albums, plus I have a couple of greatest hits. Actually, I think I have one greatest hits, and then I have two live and the feedback, which is the kind of covers album that many bands did later in their career. I think Deep Purple did their own not too long ago as well. So I'm going to get on with the show. So the first album, I'm not sure I like this stack directly in front of me. It makes me nervous. So I'm going to try to put it wide away from the mic. I don't want it to get knocked over. So the first album by Rush, of course, is their debut album. I kind of like the logo. The album's kind of a little bit tacky. The cover looks like it's supposed to be exploding. Yeah, different. And of course, this was their first one. So, the budget wasn't endless. 8 tracks in all on this album. Solid album. It's a solid debut album. I've had mixed feelings about it over the years. Initially, I loved it, and I didn't like it too much, and I kind of liked it a little bit. Then I didn't, and then when I started the channel, I was watching the live at Laura Secord High School in St. Catharines back in 1974, when they still had John Rutsey as the drummer. And they were playing a lot of the stuff on here. And so the album kind of made a little bit of a comeback again. So it's gone back and forth. It's got some really good stuff on it. I like the opening track, Finding My Way. A lot of energy, fast-paced. I always like that at the beginning. Energy, fast-paced song at the beginning of the album is always a good way to start. And they tone it down a little bit, would Need Some Love. Not too much, but a little bit. Take a Friend and Here Again. Well, Here Again I kind of like. It's a slow melodic song. I kind of like it. Take a Friend. I like to take the song off the album myself. Sorry. What You're Doing. This is kind of the Led Zeppelin feel that people always, they like to label Rush as a Led Zeppelin copy. I don't really hear it here. Yes, What You're Doing kind of sounds like a track off of Led Zeppelin 2. A little bit of a sound there. In the Mood is their hit on the album, sort of radio-friendly song. Did well when it first came out. I think a lot of people don't know about it anymore. It's kind of faded into the background. And Before and After, another song that they could do without. Working Man, of course, is the masterpiece on the album. Really established, I think that song alone kind of establishes Alex Lifeson's abilities right off the bat. So Rush at this point, kind of a guitar-dominated band. The drums and the bass more pushed back. And then, of course, you've got Geddy Lee's screechingly high voice at this particular time. So overall, I kind of like the album. I guess over the history of the album, I like it. I've had it for 45 years now, so I best like it. It really jumps, though, for me from here on. The next album, Fly By Night, recently became my favorite Rush album after almost 48 years of listening to this album. So this was the first Rush album that I ever kind of listened to in its entirety. Got it at the library in the beach where I was living at the time, and had it for 3 weeks. I played it quite a bit, kind of became more familiar with it. Anthem, of course, initially was my favorite, probably still is. By-Tor I found was a bit of a strange song. Best I Can, and I think Best I Can was kind of, and In the End were kind of similar to the debut album. So the kind of holdovers from that album, but good holdovers. Both of them are pretty strong songs. One of the most underrated songs here is Beneath, Between, Behind. Very difficult song to sing. It's almost a tongue twister. It kind of reminds me of Peter Gabriel, like just cramming as much words as he can into the sentence. That's what this song's about. Must have been difficult for Geddy Lee to wrap his tongue around that. Bytor and the Snow Dog, of course, is the epic, heavy, almost a heavy metal song, very progressive in nature. And I think probably now they think of it as tongue in cheek, but back then they were kind of serious about it. Welcome, Grandizer, to the channel. Glad to have you. You love that song by Neil Young, I see. I get it every week. Yeah, so anyways, the back half of this album, I don't think it's as good, but still very good. Compared to a lot of albums, this would be a front half of the song. A little bit more mild, I guess. You've got Fly By Night and Making Memories, two great kind of, a little bit on the poppy side songs, but great lyrics, great storytelling. I like the use of the acoustic guitar on Making Memories as well. Very, very good songs. Rivendell, a lot of people don't really like this song. I always kind of liked it. It's like kind of ballad-like in some ways, but they wanted to do something a little bit more poetic, I guess, and that's why they threw it on the album. In the end, initially was one of my favorite songs on the album, but it's kind of lost some steam with me over the years, so I don't really I guess in a way it's a good ending to the album because it's in the end, but yeah, it's probably for me the weakest track on the album, but I like all of the stuff on here. Obviously, it's my favorite Rush album. That's the second album released in 1975. Yeah, I'll get my horns up for the rock gods. Actually, I'm drinking clear water, just so you know. I know people question what's in that mug, but it's actually just water. But I got a new one now, so you can see through. I find I get very dry doing these things. And maybe it's this apartment. I'm not really sure what's causing it. Now we jump to probably maybe my second or third favorite album. This album's done very well with me since I started the channel. I think I've grown to like it even more, if that's possible, than it was. I'm talking about Rush's Caress of Steel. Not considered to be one of their better albums, at least not by the mainstream people or regular prog people, but by Rush fans, this is well loved, this album. Lots of good stuff on here. You got Bastille Day, which is kind of a bit of a holdover from that hard rock kind of stuff that you got on the first album. Think I'm Going Bald. Not one of my favorite songs for obvious reasons. Lakeside Park is my favorite Rush song, has been for many years now. It's because I've been to Lakeside Park many times. I kind of am familiar with the area. I'm familiar with the St. Catharines and all that area that Neil Peart grew up in. So I'm actually using Port Dalhousie, but it's part of St. Catharines either way. And then you've got the Necromancer, which is kind of dark and ominous, but the use of landmarks from Toronto is obvious here with Willowdale and the River Don, and the use of the buildings downtown Toronto as where the Necromancer lives, kind of thing. And then, of course, you got the Fountain of Lamneth. This is my favorite epic length track by Rush. I know most people probably prefer 2112 or Hemispheres and put this as the worst of the three, but in this case, it is my favorite. It's a little bit different, a little bit more almost, I would say, well, it's melodic for sure, but it also has that kind of pastoral feeling at times, and I kind of enjoy this. So this, to me, was a well put together album. Production's not great on it. It's not bad, but it's not great. And there's a little bit of that choppiness on this particular track that you don't normally get with some of the more later Rush stuff, but still a great album. Their third came out at the end of 1975. Okay, so next up is the one that kind of landed them, got them off of death row and brought them back to life. And kind of from this point on, they were kind of left alone to do what they want. And you're talking, of course, about 2112. Good album. I don't mind this cover, but I think it's not terribly imaginative either. It's good, but it's not terribly imaginative. The 2112 overture through to the grand finale, really well put together. I think it's smoother sounding than Fountain of Lamneth. The first three parts, the overture, the Temples of Sphinx, and the Discovery, I like all three of those parts very much. Back three I could do without. The soliloquy is a little bit better than the other two, I think. The back half of this album I didn't like initially. I have to admit that. I always used to skip it and just play 2112, but I've grown to like it quite a bit. Passage to Bangkok was the one exception on the album that I liked initially. The other stuff took a longer time. Twilight Zone. Lessons is probably my favorite on the back half now. And Something for Nothing, of course, most people know that. Tears is not too bad either. So the whole album has improved as time goes on. Whether this ever actually makes a masterpiece album for me, I don't know. Maybe. I still don't feel like it is to me. I know I'm going to take some heat for that, but that's just me. This particular album, of course, launched Rush as a major influence at the beginning of that time period. So 1976, 2112, their fourth studio album. Well, that's good. Fly By Night is, it doesn't get, other than the fact that it has arguably one of the best covers of all the Rush albums. A lot of people don't, they tend to go to the early 80s, late 70s stuff as being among their favorite. And I've gone through that myself, but in recent years, I've kind of become more interested in the Fly By Night album. It's always been a top 5 album for me by Rush, but it's now soared to the number 1 spot. Next up is All the World's a Stage. This is their first live album, which kind of covers tracks from the first 4 studio albums. This one was also released in 1976, I believe. Pretty lengthy album, too. I think originally on the vinyl, I believe, was a double album. Don't quote me on it, but I'm pretty sure it was. Lots of good stuff on it. It's not as well, doesn't sound as well as some of the other live stuff. It's not as produced or overproduced or whatever you want to call it, but it has great stuff. It starts out with Bastille and Anthem, both excellent starting out songs. I love them quite a bit here. Fly By Night and In the Mood, they threw together as they're kind of their, at that point, it would have been their 2 most friendly, radio friendly tracks, I guess. Yeah, I remember that. I remember they did tour together. I can't remember when it was, though. That doesn't seem like a match, though, does it? But a lot of bands toured with bands that they weren't a match for. And that, to me, doesn't... I like both those bands, but they don't seem like a match. But although they did play together at the SARS festival back at the beginning of this century when that SARS virus broke out and all those bands got together in Toronto's Downsview, out in Downsview, and had that concert with the Stones were there, Rush was there, AC/DC was there, and there's some other bands too, but those are the main 3. So they did play together with each other then as well. But their music is vastly different. They're like polar. No, I wouldn't say they're polar opposites, but they're very different. Then they play the entire 2112 here. It also has Something for Nothing, Lakeside Park. So the opening half of this album has a lot of the stuff that I really like. And then at the back end, you got like 2112, Bytor and the Snow Dog, In the End, Working Man, which are all longer tracks. At least that period of time, they would have been a longer track. I just never understood why they would end this live thing off with What You're Doing. Usually, it's an encore that it goes at the back end of it, and What You're Doing doesn't strike me as an encore. I mean, Working Man is fine, and even though they put it together with Finding My Way, and basically that's for the long, super long guitar solo and huge drum solo. I think the drum solo is actually on Working Man, if I'm not mistaken. There was a guitar solo, and I'm not quite sure where it was. What You're Doing, yeah, kind of a funny ending to the live album. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this was a double live album at one point. Now it's just one CD. Yeah, I don't understand why Rush never went to Australia. It seems kind of funny, doesn't it? They've been just about everywhere. They didn't actually go to South America until I think their Clockwork Angels tour was the first time they went to South America too. So they were basically a North American band who did some stuff in Europe and stuff, but I don't even know if they went to Japan even. We're going to move on to the 5th studio album, which is this one, A Farewell to Kings. Yeah, I'm not surprised. They're a kind of band that I think would fit well in Australia. That's why it surprises me that they never actually played there. So this is A Farewell to Kings. This is the first of a kind of very prog album. So they kind of started moving towards prog with Fly By Night, but they also had some very heavy elements in the music. And so the drift was very slow. And then once they got to 2112 and they did 2112, it's almost like a prog metal sound. And then this album comes along, very proggy, lots of proggy stuff here. Initially, for many years, this album, I loved all the songs except for Cygnus X1. It was the only one I didn't really care for. And Closer to the Edge, Cinderella Man, and Mad Rides always kind of faded a bit. The two opening tracks, Farewell to Kings and Xanadu, is probably for me personally, this is probably my favorite side of an album ever, back to back. Just absolutely love it. Cygnus X1 has kind of grown on me over time. I kind of think of it as a headphone song, so that's usually when I play the album, I like to play it on the headphones. Yeah, so Farewell to Kings. This was probably the first Rush album that me and my friend John owned. He got this one, started the Rush movement. I wasn't a big Rush fan initially. They didn't come along until maybe 1980 when I started really moving on them. Yeah, well, Rush was a very proggy sound and very different sound. A lot of people didn't like Geddy Lee's voice, and radio stations were not wanting to put him on there either for that same reason, I think. No, I didn't go to Australia because a lot of people seem to think that Australia and New Zealand are like a boat ride apart. And it ain't that way, I'm telling you. Australia is probably 1,000 kilometers, maybe more, to Australia. So I had a month to go, and I decided to spend that month in New Zealand. If I'd split it, I would have not got to see most of New Zealand, which is what I wanted to do. You got to remember, I had a friend and his relatives were all living in New Zealand. That's primarily the reason I went there. Now they're all living in Australia. None of them live in New Zealand now. I don't think so. I don't think Terry Brown had anything against Australia, but Australia's got a bit of a small, well, at that time, they would have had a relatively small population. So Rush was trying to tour where there was bigger population to increase their popularity. So maybe that might have had something to do it. 1,500 Ks, eh? I knew it was a fair distance away. It's not close. People think people think that Australia's or New Zealand's like you could hit it with a rock from Australia, and it's not the case. Yeah, it's always been fairly far away. Very different country, though. I don't think they're too similar, to be honest with you. Next album up is The Hemispheres. Not really well received when it first came out. I don't think it was received as bad as Caress of Steel, but I think it was very complex, easily their most complex album. A lot of people had a hard time with the complexity, I think, so it took a long time to absorb. Now I would say it's got to be in the top 5 of most people who like this kind of music. For Rush, anyways, this is a strong album. It starts out with the second book of Cygnus X1 on the Hemispheres. I like that version. I didn't initially like this. I kind of shied away from this side of the album for many years until maybe about a decade or so ago when I started listening to it more. But I always loved the other side, Circumstances, Trees, La Villa Strangiato, all really excellent top shelf Rush songs, each of them for different reasons. Circumstances got more of a radio friendly sound to it. The Trees is more epic in its scope. And then you got La Villa Strangiato, which to me may be the best instrumental song of all time. It's definitely my favorite anyways. Yeah, so Hemispheres, strong album, very complex. Nearly broke them putting this album together. They pushed themselves to the absolute limit of their abilities on that one. Yeah, so you're almost in 2 different countries. Western Australia, away from Victoria and the state I'm based. Now, my friend's father lived in Melbourne. Him and his wife, when they retired from here, moved to Melbourne, Australia. They had the money to do it there. He was a major writer, and she was a dentist. They both retired there. I don't think he's alive anymore. He wasn't doing well last time I seen him, and that's about 5 years ago. Yeah, I'd have to ask Ben that question. I don't. When I think of Australian music, I don't generally go to the prog scene. I tend to go to the hard rock scene when I go there, when I'm thinking about it. No, he didn't write any. He wasn't a book writer, and per se, he wrote for magazines, for Shell magazine and other corporation magazines. He did have a friendship with Ben Wicks as well. I'm not even sure what Ben Wicks did, but I know the name. Ben Craven, I've heard of him. I don't know. I don't think I've listened to any of his stuff, but I have heard of him. So I'm going to go on to the next one. This one was the one that opened the door for me, really. First one I bought was my favorite album until recently. So for a good 45 years, this was my favorite Rush album, Permanent Waves. It hasn't held up very well over the last decade. Just severe burnout. It's probably the most burned out Rush album for me. I played it so much for over the years, so much. The only song on here that has never burned out for me is Natural Science. The others are all pretty much dead in the water. Even Free Will, which was for many years my favorite song on the album. Spirit of Radio was the one, of course, that I loved initially. Got me to buy the album, got me into Rush. Free Will, of course. Those were the 2 tracks that I listened to all the time. Jacob's Ladder, I never really grew on. I probably like that the most now on the album next to Natural Science. And then Different Strings I liked. And Entre Nous kind of burned out after about 2 weeks of listening to it, and I've never really come back. But it's a good, solid album. Lots of stuff going on here in the cover. A lot of stuff. Anyways, very good album. But again, it's the beginning. You can see that the electronic part is beginning to take right over a little bit on Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings, but much more so on this album. It has a nice mix of hard sound, of prog sound to it, and electronic sound to it. I love this album, or I did it. I still love it. It's just not as high up on my ranking as it used to be. Permanent Waves, released in 1980, the first one of the 80s. Yeah, Men at Work I like. They I think would be much better for me if I could get those other two albums. I've looked and looked. I guess I could order them online. I might do that at some point if I can't. I love to give things a huge try before I make a jump to it. But yeah, I really like the Business as Usual album. Really good. And the Cargo one I like too, but I can never find it. And the other one isn't bad either. But it would have been nice if they could have continued and done more stuff. But I know Colin Hay did some of his own stuff too. And I look for that too, but it's almost as hard as finding them. Okay, now we move on to 1981's Moving Pictures. Many consider to be Rush's best album. You know, the picture here of Toronto City Hall, or at least not City Hall, but the old City Hall where the courts are. Nice shot of it here. I love the pictures. They're all a little bit of reference to some of the Rush's other stuff, and then that famous dogs playing cards picture in the middle there. Yeah, this is quite good. I did like this album when it came out. It moved a little bit further to the electronic stuff than Permanent Waves. Got some great stuff on it. I think initially I liked the first half of the album much better, but all those songs are long since burned out, especially Tom Sawyer, Limelight. I don't care if I ever hear either of them again. I never go to this album. I don't know if it's been off my shelf in recent years. Just want to take a look at it. Yeah, it's still in good shape, but I just never listened to it anymore. It's too much radio play. Really killed it. It just was on everywhere, and they have one song from Rush on the playlist at work, and it's Tom Sawyer, and as soon as I hear it, I leave the room. No, my throat gets dry when I talk too much. That's all. I don't know what Geddy Lee's doing. I haven't heard anything. I thought him and Alex were talking about playing together again, but it's been like since Alex did the album with that second album that he made with that band whose name I can never remember. It's a weird name. The second album is really good, though. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, that second album by them, really good. I thought about getting it, but every time I go there, it's like $18. I don't really want to pay that much for it. I don't know if I'll like it that much to get it, but it's much better. The first album I didn't care for at all. The second one, a lot better. I was hoping that Geddy and Alex might do something together, but these guys are over 70 now, so it's a little bit late in the career to be starting a new band and touring and stuff. Yeah, the back half of this album I never warmed up to too much initially. Vital Signs was always my favorite track on the album, though. The other two, Witch Hunt and Camera Eye, well, none of those parts of the thing that they were doing called Fear, I never really cared for any of the parts, really. Vital Signs, great. Camera Eye, warm up to it a little bit, but probably my least favorite of those 10-minute lengthy songs. So yeah, Moving Pictures, their best-selling album, maybe their most popular, their magnus opus album, but Not for me. It's not a masterpiece for me either. I know that bothers some people that the two biggest Rush albums, 2112 and Moving Pictures, aren't masterpieces for me. I don't know. It just never. I've always liked Rush's lesser stuff, I guess is the best way to put it. Hey, Stephen. Glad to have you aboard. Welcome to the channel. We're just doing a Rush discography and basically shooting the crap, I guess is the good way to put it. So the next album up on my list is this one, Exit Stage Left, their second live album. Much better production on this. The choice of songs is probably better for me. I like a lot of the stuff on here better. It's a little smooth. It doesn't have that raw sound that you got on the initial album, and the initial All the World's a Stage. I don't think this one is a double album, though. It's not a double CD, but neither is the other one. But I think, you know, it's got most of the stuff from the last four albums, from A Farewell to Kings, Hemispheres, Permanent Waves, and Moving Pictures. So you got stuff from each of them on here. Dominated primarily, of course, by I'm surprised there's no Limelight on here. I could have swore that was on here. No, it's not on here though. And they did have one song from Fly By Night on here, Beneath, Between, Behind. All the other stuff, I don't know what Bruins Bane is. I can't remember that. I think it's just a little bit. I think it's just a little bit that leads up to the trees. Yeah, that looks like what it is. Xanadu's good on here, of course, and La Villa Strongato to end it. Fantastic ending. Spirit of Radio is a nice opening to this album. And has Passage to Bangkok. So they do have a couple of tracks that were on All the World's a Stage, or at least were on that period of time. But the rest of the stuff, of course, YYZ, Red Barchetta, and Tom Sawyer from their big album. I'm just surprised they didn't play Limelight. I could have swore it was on here. Anyways, that's their second live album. Pretty solid one. Yeah, welcome to the channel. Glad to have you aboard. No, I don't think it would have. To be honest with you, it wasn't just that another member might have added to the band. The problem is when you have, the more members you have, the more things can break down. They had a nice mix of they got along very well. They're all like brothers. There was never any, it wasn't a democracy like you get where, you know, if they want to do something and two guys don't want to do it, one guy wants to do it, they would outvote him and do it. Didn't work like that with Rush. They don't work that way at all. Everybody had to agree with what they were doing. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. If one member didn't want to do it, they wouldn't do it. It didn't matter if everybody else wanted to do it. That's just the way they operated. And when you throw another person in there, that really kind of breaks up the chemistry too. And I don't think they wanted that. They always wanted to do everything themselves. And basically they did. So, you know, and all three of them are maestros in their musicianship. Have I ever done anything to cover what bands influenced Rush? No, I haven't done that. It's not hard to figure out. Initially, it was probably Led Zeppelin and The Who were probably the big impacts initially. And then from there, Yes became a major influence. Genesis became a major influence for them. Genesis is the main influence on Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings. They wanted to do that same thing that Genesis was doing. And you can see that there's some similarities between those two albums compared to Genesis, like Foxtrot, which I think was the big album that they liked a lot. Yeah, that sometimes is a problem with bands. See, the more people you have, the more issues you have. When you have three guys, people would think, okay, so two guys want to do one thing and they just gang up on the third guy. They didn't operate that way. Geddy Lee said it as much. He said, we would do We would all agree on something or we wouldn't do it. It had to be unanimous. It was always unanimous. And if one guy didn't want to do it, because they were doing that electronic pop for many years, and then Alex said he didn't want to do it anymore. He was tired of doing it. Let's stop doing it. And so they stopped doing it. Yeah, maybe a real keyboardist would have made a big difference in the sound of their music, but I like my Rush the way it is, so I'm glad they didn't go that route. Yeah, I've got them all. I own them all, even the ones I don't like. And we're going to start getting into them very shortly. So the next album up is the 1982 Signals. And although I liked this album a lot when it came out, I did. I listened to it all the time when I first got it. I now see it as an overall disappointment for me because I knew they were going to change their style and go different when this album came out, and I wasn't really on board with that sound. All the tracks on here are pretty good, though. Subdivisions, I think, is oddly enough, even though it's the kind of radio-friendly song of them all, it definitely doesn't have a burnout like so many of their other songs for me. I still like it a lot, still play it a lot. The rest of the album, Analog Kid, Chemistry, Digital Man, were songs I all liked quite a bit early on. And I haven't listened to this album for a long time. I don't think I really like those songs much anymore. I don't hate them or anything. Just The Weapon, I was never a huge fan of because it's part of that grouping of Fear, the parts of Fear. They put one on each album. New World Man, I liked a lot. Still kind of like it too. And then Losing It, yeah, that one's pretty solid. Countdown kind of reminds me of Camera Eye. Very similar sound to it. But overall, I don't think this album has aged as well as some of their other albums. And The Dog and the Fire Hydrant, I don't know what they were trying to achieve there. So that is their second album into the 80s here. Yeah, it's one of their worst album covers. I never really understood what is the point of this. I don't get it. Like, why do we need to see a dog in a fire hydrant? Do we not know what's going to happen there, right? Yeah, Rush was big. I don't know how big they were in Europe. I assume they were reasonably big. I don't think they were a major band over there, though. Yeah, it still gets quite a bit of airplay, and I like it. I guess it just kind of hits a nerve for many people who grew up in this country during that time period. yeah, for sure. Okay, this next one. So they go from this cover to this cover. This is a good cover. I kind of like this. This is the best part of this album, I think, is the cover. There's almost a robotic feel to this album. It's moved now completely into that synth world, but it does have some heavy stuff on here. And I actually kind of like this album now, maybe more so than I did Signals. I like Distant Early Warning, Red Sector A, Body Electric. All these are good tracks. Red Lenses, I don't mind that. So it's a pretty strong album. The songs are a bit short for Rush, that is. It's a darker album too, much darker than some of their other stuff after Mitch. But it gives me that kind of science fiction, almost Android type feel to it. Of their electronic albums, of which this is the first, I like this one the best. So I've warmed up to it. What year was this one, anyways? 83, I think. No, it was 84. So a couple of years after Signals, it came out. Yeah, I'm not sure how they did in the UK. I never really concerned myself with how Rush did in the other parts of the world. I knew they did good in my house. That's all I know. Next up, maybe one of my least favorite Rush albums. I don't really care much for this album cover either. I don't think it's as bad as the Signals one, but it's not really that good. It's got one song on here that I kind of like, Big Money. That's the hit, right? The rest of this stuff is just unmemorable to me. I've tried. I bought this album so I could complete my section. The only two I didn't have were Grace Under Pressure and this one, and I bought them both. Grace Under Pressure I've listened to quite a bit over the last few years. This one once, just to make sure it was working, and haven't listened to it since. Just doesn't do anything for me. Do I think it's a terrible album? No, I just don't think it's a very good one either. Power Windows. Yeah, you're right about that. It's one of the reasons I never bought it. I hate to say this, but when I was younger, maybe you guys can identify with this, but when I was younger, I could hear an album on the radio or a song on the radio, go to buy the record at the store, and if it had a shitty album cover, I wouldn't buy it. Or I would allow some other album to draw me away. It happened many times, many times. Next album up, I do like this one. So I do stand a little bit corrected. I think I like this album a little bit more than Grace Under Pressure. Not a lot, but a little bit more. It's this one. This is Hold Your Fire. Sorry. There's a couple of tracks on here I quite like. Force 10. And Time Stands Still. Those two tracks I like a lot. The rest of the album is it's kind of okay. Maybe I like Grace Under Pressure more. I probably do, but this one I don't mind. This album doesn't get a lot of love from Rush fans or people in general. They just don't like it. I won't. I didn't even know Rush had covered that song, to be honest. I had listened to that album, which name is eluding me at the moment. But anyways, I had listened to the album, but I wasn't a huge Yardbirds fan, so I didn't realize it was a Yardbirds song until you said it, and I went and looked at the album. Yeah, that's one of the few Rush albums I don't listen to much. There's a couple tracks on there I like a lot, but I don't listen to it much. This one I do listen to more, and even though Tai Shan is on here, which is a terrible song. But other than that, the rest of this album is not terrible, in my opinion. Next up is, to me, the absolute worst Rush album. Ends the 1980s, and a good time to end it. This is not the best of album covers. I don't know what on earth they're trying to get here, other than magicians pulling a rabbit out of the hat. That's what I have to feel they were trying to attempt to give a opinion of. Show Don't Tell is probably the only track on here that I even remotely like. The rest of this album, I can barely stomach getting through it. To me, it's the worst Rush album. I don't like it. It's a terrible album, and it's only owned by me because it completes my collection. And that's it. I'm going to move these out of the way. Next up, this album, I kind of warmed up to this one a bit too. So of the five electronic synth pop albums, I kind of like three of them. The other two I don't. One of them I don't like at all. This is Roll the Bones. This one's kind of an interesting album. It's got a few different sounds to it. I think that this covers, this is the one with the broken connector there is busted. I have to replace it. I just forget about it until when I get some more, I'll do it. I don't like buying those ones at the used store either, because they're cheap and they break easy. So I'd rather just go buy a box off somebody at a yard sale and then take them apart and take the ones I want out of it. That's how I generally work. Dreamline, Bravado, Roll the Bones is a good track. I like that. Where's My Thing? I like that's a good track. Big Wheel, Hearsay, Ghost of a Chance. I like that. Neurotica. I like that. You Bet Your Life. Pretty good. So this is a pretty solid techno pop album. Of all their albums, I kind of like this one maybe overall the best, but like I like the songs overall the best, but I think Grace Under Pressure has a better album cover. This is not a bad cover though. All those dice and Rush's name, and then him kicking that skull around, kind of different. Next up, this is the beginning of the post synth what do you call it, synth pop era. This is a really good Rush album. It could be arguably my favorite album that came out of Rush from after the initial classic era of Rush. Fantastic album. Counterparts. For some reason, I always forget the name of it, but lately I've been getting it. Every song on here is good. Animate, fantastic opening track. Stick It Out, great track. Cut to the Chase, maybe the best song on this album. Absolutely killer song. I love it. Nobody's Hero. It's a bit of a sad song, but I kind of like it. It sticks in my head all the time. Alien Shore, good track. Speed of Love. Leave That Thing Alone. I like that. Cold Fire, great tune as well. This is a solid Rush album. Probably cracks my top 10, which is a lot, saying probably my favorite post-classic era album. Well, arguably, it's definitely in there. Anyways, Counterparts. The Bolt album, I call it. Yeah, that's true, because think about your listening taste now from when you were a teenager. Do you even listen to any of that stuff anymore? A lot of the bands that I listened to in my teens, I don't really listen to much anymore, either because they're burned out or because I don't understand why I listened to them in the first place. Well, as you get older, your ear wants something more, wants something different, wants something, in some cases, and I've seen this with you with your 10cc, you want to listen to something that's a little bit more mellow, maybe a little bit more musical, not necessarily pounding away at your head, I got that. Next up is Test for Echo, one of their better covers. I like this cover a lot. To me, it's the Sasquatch in Canada. There you go. Test for Echo. I love the back part too, with the little radar things, electric. What do they call them? I can't remember their type of telescope. I can't remember. Anyways, doesn't matter. It'll come to me. So the first 4 tracks on this album: Test for Echo, Driven, Half the World, and Color of Right. Love all 4 of those tracks. After that, it's hit and miss. Time and Motion's okay. Totem is good. Dog Years is pretty good. The rest of them, yeah. So the album is top heavy in my opinion, but still a decent album, much better than any electrical pop albums that they put out in the 80s. This one is a good one, solid album. Bet one of the better covers, like I said, too. You're into the Sasquatch too, eh? I have the Marvel comics with all the Alpha Flight. I like the Sasquatch best, actually. Yeah, Rush has done 19, so Ben's close. 19 studio albums plus Feedback, which then I guess would make 20 if you're counting Feedback. Then it is 20, and then you've got several, like most bands, did a lot of live albums, right? Next up is this one. This is a collection. It's the second retrospective from 81 to 87. I don't know. I didn't get the first one, which I assume is from 74 to 80. I don't mind this. It was okay. Somebody bought me it because they saw I was a Rush fan, thought I'd like to have it. So I don't even remember. It might have been my daughter, actually. This one's got most of the synth pop era stuff on it. Well, this basically goes from 81 to 87. So you got Red Barchetta here. Subdivisions is on here. Analog Kid. Distant Early Warning. Body Electric. Limelight. Red Sector A. New World Man. Tom Sawyer and Force 10. So Big Money is on here as well. So it's got most of their kind of well-known songs from the 80s. Good one. No, a lot of these bands that came out of the 70s, they started to slow down in the 80s. By the 90s, most of them were not doing any albums, or very few. Not all of them, but and then there was that big period where nobody was doing anything. And then now it seems to have exploded again. A lot of bands are putting out 2-3 albums every couple of years again. That's because people are wanting it again. That's what happens. Next album is the Return to Form. Vapor Trails. This is the album after the death of both his daughter and wife for Neil Peart. To lose both your wife and your daughter within a year of each other has got to be difficult for anybody. His daughter was just about to start university too. It's just a tragic story, really. He did come back and got married again and had another child, and that child was around 7 or 8 when he died. So just he's had his troubles. He did. This is a good album. I don't think it's a great album, but it's a good album. One Little Victory, Ghost Rider, Vapor Trail, Secret Touch, Nocturne. I like all these tracks. A lot of the tracks are kind of similar. There's kind of a theme, I think, to it. It's a darker theme. It's not really a Rush theme normally, but it's a bit of a darker theme. But it's a good album. I don't know where this would rank. I'd have to go look at my ranking, but I think it probably beats out about half a dozen other albums. This was released in 2002. So they had gone about 6 years at that point, the biggest break at that point. And that was because Neil was reasonably sure he wasn't going to play anymore, but he came back. I don't think I'm going to do songs. I think we're going to do albums. I'm not much of a song person, so I wouldn't even know where to go with that. But I will pick out 30, 31 albums. I've already kind of started to look through them. I'll do that theme, but I want to do it by albums because that's generally how I listen to albums. By how I listen to music, sorry. Queen did about 15. Led Zeppelin did about 9. And Hendrix 3. Well, yeah, Hendrix did 3 with The Experience, but I think he did, correct me if I'm wrong, I think he did 1 with the Gypsies, Band of Gypsies. Am I wrong? Was there an album that he did with the Band of Gypsies? Led Zeppelin had 9 plus that Coda, if you want to count that one. I don't know how many Queen did, but that seems about right. Yeah, Bigfoot's on his way here. Maybe we'll get him to do one of these videos for me. Yeah, it's different. It's very different stuff. But all of those, I like all those bands. Some of them I like more than others, but I still like them all. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. That could happen. Or we could just get Andre the Giant to go back and do his Bigfoot fighting with the $6 million man. one of the worst shows ever, but also one of the ones I probably watched the most in the 70s. Next up, we're going to go with playback here, or feedback. Sorry, not playback, feedback. My apologies. Got some good tracks on here. Summertime Blues, I thought they did an excellent cover. I thought The big thing that I'm going to say about this album, Alex Lifeson, that guy can adjust his guitar style to just about anything. Really. He can play any song from any band and make it sound like that band. He's just so good at that. His abilities are very underrated. Heart Full of Soul, that's the one we're going to be doing this week. What's It Worth? The Seeker, of course, from The Who. Fantastic song. They do a good job on it. I don't know if it's as good as The Who, but it's pretty good. And then the rest of them are okay. I didn't mind their version of Crossroads too. I think pretty decent. But I think I've listened to this maybe 3 times. Just wanted to see how it is. Not in the best of shape considering. Yeah, I just it's okay. It's for what it is, it's good. You know, it's a covers album. So it's decent for that. Yeah, another day. Oh, don't ask me to do that. I'm not doing that. I love all those guys. If you put a gun to my head, I would pick Geddy Lee. He's always been my favorite. He's always been arguably my favorite musician. He has a lot of abilities that I admire greatly. The fact that he's an atheist, I overlook, but other than that, I think he's well-spoken, well-read, he has a love of baseball that I share. That's one of the things I like the best about him. Great bass player. And he's a very moderate type of individual. He's not extreme. I think he's kind of the glue of the band too. But I do love the other 2 guys quite a bit too. So be tough. No, I don't use Facebook much. I have a Facebook page, but I don't have any people on it. I don't really even go there. I don't even know why I have it. I should probably just eliminate it. This is kind of my my thing, YouTube. I don't really have anything else to go by. I think I have a Twitter account, but I can't get in it because I lost the password. Next up, Snakes and Arrows. This is kind of the album that brought me back to Rush. It's not that I left them. I'm still listening to the old stuff, but I really never listened to anything beyond Signals for many years until this album. Well, actually, probably until about 2001 when my daughter was born. I was working 2 jobs and I was playing a lot of music. I started to come back to them quite a bit. But this was the one that kind of brought me back to new stuff from. This is a fantastic album. It's really good. It's probably my favorite album that they've done since Signals. Even more than Counterparts. The opening track, Far Cry, fantastic tune. I love it. Armor and Sword, really heavy. Working with Them Angels, another great tune. The Larger Bowl, I think, is probably the hit. If you were going to have a hit on this album, that would probably be the one. Main Monkey Business, really good. Spindrift is okay. The Way the Wind Blows is a little bit of a more laid back, quiet song. Pretty good though. Hope, this is the one. I think his son played guitar on this. Am I wrong? I think so. I think that's the one. Faithless, decent enough. Bravest Faces, good. Good News First. And then, of course, we have Malignant Narcissism, which may be my favorite instrumental by them since La Villa Strangiato. And then we Hold On, another great way to end the album. It's a strong album. I played it a lot when it came out. Probably played it too much. I think I was playing it 3-4 times a day for about a year. And then I kind of burned it out a bit, so I left it alone for a long time, but I've come back to it. And this came out in 2006, 2007, I believe, 2007. Snakes and Arrows, really good. And then their final studio album, Clockwork Angels, kind of had a different story for this one from Snakes and Arrows. So I had been waiting for like 7 years or 6 years for another Rush album, thinking, oh God, I hope they do at least one more. And they did release Caravan about a year before they did the album, and I thought, oh, that's great. I love it. A fantastic tune. And then when it came out, the day we went to the store, we bought this one and Miley Cyrus's Breakout album for my daughter. And I know this is going to sound really bad, but I spent a lot more time listening to that album than this one. And I really was like not really crazy about this album for the longest time. I thought the production wasn't that great, in my opinion. Geddy's voice was shot. I thought didn't sound great. I didn't like it. It was disappointing. But I warmed up to it about 4 or 5 years ago. It just clicked with me. And then I was listening to it a lot. I think it's a good, solid end to a remarkable career by a band. Clockwork Angel's really good. The Halo Effect, I like. 7 Cities of Gold, I like that. The Wreckers, I think, maybe the best song after Caravan on here. And The Garden, another really strong ending. So The Garden is the final track released by Rush. It's a nice way to end. The album's a nice way to end. And for those of you who have never noticed this, maybe you've seen this album and you wonder what this clock is about. But if you look at this clock closely, it says 9/12, right? So 9 is in the army calendar is 21, right? So it's actually 21/12. That's what they tried to do here to end it, for those of you who didn't know that. And of course, I had to have the Clockwork Angels Tour album. This is a live one. It's good. It's a 3-disc set. Opens up nice, showing them in their concert. Fantastic. Also, there's 3 discs in here. The first one pretty much is a mix of everything. The second one's kind of the same. The first 2 sides of this album are pretty much the stuff that came out from like around from the 1980s on. Third disc, a little bit different. They do get some stuff in here from pre-1980s. Not too much, but a little bit. Actually, I think there's only the one. Spirit of Radio, 1980. Everything else is post 1980 stuff, but it's not a bad album. I like it, and they do a solo and Alex guitar stuff is fantastic. And Geddy Lee is like the guy's like an amazing bass player, really. The stuff he can do is just phenomenal. He doesn't use a pick either, which I don't know how he gets that big sound out of it like that. Anyways, that's my Rush collection in total, all albums. I hope everybody enjoyed that. Yeah, Rush has a great legacy, as does Yes, Genesis. I think Rush probably has the better legacy, though. If you look at the first half of the discographies from these 3 bands, everybody loves that early Genesis stuff. Everybody loves that early Yes stuff. Everybody loves that early Rush stuff. Not so much Yes and Genesis after the 1980s. Genesis probably the least of the 3 as far as the prog people go. Yes, has some decent stuff here and there, not too bad, but Rush really has some really good stuff that came out post 1990. Like they've got 3 or 4 strong albums after that. I don't think. Well, just to give you an example, I don't think Yes or Genesis have anything to match these 2 albums, or even this one, if I can find it here. No, I can. It's on the top of the other pile. This one here. These 3. There's nothing that they put out that's as good as any of those 3 albums, and that's so. I would say maybe Genesis has more albums in a row that I love, like there's like 8 or 9 of them. Yes has a very strong discography early on, maybe the best discography of any of them. But Rush overall has the best discography of the 3, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. You can take that to the bank if you want. So that's it for my Rush stuff today. So just for those of you who like this kind of stuff, I'm going to be doing on Wednesday night favorites. I'll be doing ranking the entire discography of Jethro Tull. Hopefully, I won't mix it all up. It's tough to do 23 albums because you get halfway through and you can't remember what number you're at. So I try to mark them on a board so I can look quickly over just in case I screw that up. So we'll be doing all 23 of the Jethro Tull discs for the studio albums. And I will also include the Christmas album on the list, even if I don't end up getting it, which it's the one album I can never find. They always have the bin for Jethro Tull is always full. I go there looking and they've got everything that you could possibly want except for that one. Okay, we'll keep on rocking in the 3 world. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us tonight. Yes, I know you burn out and then you fade away. Okay, great. Anyways, I want to thank you all for showing up here. Hopefully you can join me on Wednesday to watch the ranking of the Jethro Tull stuff. It won't be live, but you'll be able to look at the video. Anyways, I hope to see you all very soon. And I'm glad that the electrical storm didn't keep me from coming on the air this week. I figured out what went wrong with last week's live video. It was I put it on streaming instead of putting it on webcam, and that's why I couldn't get into it, and it wouldn't let me access that to change it. Yeah, it was just a nightmare. I ended up having to redo it and start it, and by then it was just a mess. But anyways, this worked out good. I'm glad everybody enjoyed it, and we will see you all next week for the next live stream. I'm going to look through my stuff that I want to do and see where I want to go next. Take care and have yourself a good one. Good night.